Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today we're going to be speaking to Yorkshire-born adventurer Lauren Morton. Lauren is a two-time world record holder. She's rowed across the Atlantic Ocean and she's also survived the island with Bear Grylls. Hi Lauren, how are you?
Hi Sarah, I'm good. Good to talk to you.
I know, we have been in contact, I think, oh my goodness, on and off for the past couple of months trying to get an interview booked in, but either you've been busy or I've been busy, so it's absolutely awesome to connect. Now, you have done some phenomenal adventures, some crazy challenges, and it will be awesome to discuss all of that in more detail. But for somebody who's listening, who maybe doesn't know who you are, do you just want to share a little bit more about you?
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. So I'm 26 years old. I originally was born in Leeds up in North Yorkshire, and I very much had the kind of normal schooling, GCSEs, kind of mediocre A levels, enough to get me into uni. And then I graduated as a paediatric nurse, and I decided that I was going to row across the Atlantic, and that's kind of where my life changed a little bit. So I've done kind of crazy adventures and challenges ever since.
But let's just go back. I mean, rowing across the Atlantic. So you've almost like towed the line. You've followed society and what everyone expects, your GCSEs, your A levels, you've gone on to uni. But actually that's quite a big jump from, I mean, when I left university, I sort of didn't really think much about what I wanted to do. And it was just sort of, well, everyone else is getting graduate jobs. That's what I must do. And everyone else is moving down to London. I suppose that's what I've got to do. But how did you go from graduating university to rowing across the Atlantic? What were the steps in between?
It started because when I was at university, I took up rowing as a sport, and very much when I'd been at school, I'd been one of those girls that had been quite scared of getting stuck into sport, you know, in case I ruined my hair, in case my face got too red, all that stuff that now I just can't believe I was that person, but I was. And I got very bored in my second year of uni, and I was like, do you know what, I want to do something. And so I just joined one day the rowing team, and I just sat on this indoor ergo machine, and I tried as hard as I could. And I remember I did like average to poor, but I did enough that I wanted to go back. And ever since then I became quite addicted, and we trained 12 times a week, and you make amazing friends. And it was one of those friends that I met that really has been the pinnacle point in my life, kind of taking a completely different direction to where I thought it was going to go. And she was called Elle, and we were really good mates from the rowing team. And unfortunately, she passed away when she was 23 from cervical cancer. And my friend Hannah came up with this crazy idea of rowing across the Atlantic. And I kind of had this mad rush of finishing university and getting my dissertation in, and I had 100 days to prepare for it, in which I was going to join Hannah at the start line of this 3,000-mile ocean rowing race. But the thing is that we kind of felt that Elle was worth doing something crazy for. The team name on the first row was called Inspirational Friends, and the way that she'd handled death, she'd always been so positive and kind of had lived her life like every day was the last. We thought we should do something crazy for her, and rowing across the Atlantic was that thing. Running a marathon or kind of a bake sale just didn't really feel enough, I think.
God, absolutely. I mean, God, 23 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, cervical cancer as well. I think it's one of those things that I hate going for smear tests. And I think, I put it off for years and years and years, because I suppose you always think it's never gonna happen to you. It's never going to happen to somebody so young. I mean, obviously that had a huge impact on you. And I mean, rowing across the Atlantic in her memory, absolutely such an inspiration.
Well, I don't know. It was, I think, when she was first diagnosed when she was 21, and we didn't really know what that meant, because we were all 21-year-olds, and what does really cervical cancer mean to anyone that age. It's kind of something that just heard about maybe through Jade Goody, but it kind of played no relevance in our lives. And then I remember us being really worried that perhaps it was going to affect if she could have children in the future. And then slowly that worry became kind of irrelevant when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. So it's just a weird thing to go through, I think, when you're young, to have a friend that dies of cancer, and you see that life, just very much halted, when I'm sure, she had such big dreams. So yeah, it was the main motivator.
So what was it like then over those 100 days? Obviously you're dealing with the grief, but also you're trying to get things together in preparation for the race. I mean, mentally, where were you?
Well, the thing is that Ella had actually died the year previously, and Hannah had set up this team called Inspirational Friends, and unfortunately things hadn't worked out with her rowing partner. So she found herself kind of 3 months before the start line of contemplating who am I going to go with, who's going to come on this journey. And I kind of put my hand up for it, and I asked university, can I finish my course 2 months earlier than I was kind of scheduled to do, and I had no sick days off for the entire 3-year university course. And so they said, actually, you've built up quite a lot of extra time that we give to people for having off sick. So yeah, you can go. So I handed in my dissertation early, I handed in my presentations early, and kind of didn't really prepare, I think is the easiest way. As you're going to find out, the story absolutely was not a success, and it was very much a complete catalogue of errors. And I'm sure preparing for university finals and rowing across the Atlantic probably played a part in that.
So let's talk about some of those errors or the journey and what happened along the journey, because I know from reading the blog on your website, there's lots of ups, there's lots of downs, there's lots of challenges that you faced. I mean, yeah, if you could just talk us a little bit through that journey, that would be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, there's a picture of me and Hannah at the start line, and we're about two hours into this 3,000-mile ocean rowing race, and we've got the biggest grins on our face. And I always say, had I have known what was going to happen, I never would have been smiling. I was just so naive into what was going to happen. And basically, it was just a catalogue of errors, and we had total equipment failure. So we set off at the start line in La Gomera. And so for those that don't know, you set off in La Gomera in the Canary Islands, and you're rowing 3,000 miles west to Antigua in the Caribbean. And within that, you're completely unaided and unsupported. So you take all food, all medical supplies, or water on board, and you go, or at least that's the kind of idea. And it should take around 45 to 50 days. So we set off, and within the first hour, we were having problems with our automatic steering. It was actually steering us back into the harbour in La Gomera. And I always say, I swear that boat knew what we were about to go through before we did. But we kept going. We kept saying, okay, it doesn't matter. We'll go in and we'll steer the boat manually. So we did that. We hit really, really bad weather systems, kind of the weather in the winter of 2013. It was when we were having all those, well, you guys were having all those floods in the UK, and we were kind of sat in the middle of the storm, getting bashed around in a 7-metre ocean rowing boat. And the boat just took a lot, I think, in those storms, and had a lot of irreplaceable damage. But everything that went wrong, we learned to adapt and deal with the fact that we didn't have that piece of equipment, and we just carried on. And it got to the point that we were around day 50 and we were still going. And most people at this point was already finishing the race. And then we had a capsize, and I split my head open, and I had about a 6 or 7 centimetre split across my forehead, in which Hannah helped me skin glue my head back together out in the middle of the ocean. And then the final straw, I think, was our rudder. And the rudder is what you steer the boat with. And that snapped off one night in a storm. And we kind of had the choice then around the kind of 40 or 50 day marker. Okay, what do we do? What are we going to do? We don't have any steering on the boat. But we'd come so far, and we'd come, we'd already dedicated, 6 weeks of our life to this, and there was no way we wanted to turn back. So we thought to ourselves, okay, we're going to accept outside assistance. And that meant that a yacht would sail from Antigua out to where we were, that was around, 800 miles from Antigua at this point, with a spare rudder. And it would mean that we would be an assisted row across the Atlantic Ocean, but at the end of the day, it still meant we would get across and we would be able to finish this journey that we'd done, in memory of Elle and stuff. So that wasn't as straightforward either as we would have hoped. We originally got told that it would take 10 or 11 days for the support yacht to get out to us. And in actual fact, we drifted for 27 days waiting for this rudder to come. And we drifted with pretty much nothing else. By this point, we had no electricity to charge our batteries, so we didn't have any kind of music or entertainment. We were just drifting in the sea conditions. So I think we went pretty crazy. I remember going a bit loopy and embracing kind of being a seaman out in the big 30 or 40 foot waves. And eventually around 27-day mark, we saw the ship approaching us. And for some reason, Hannah just said, "Imagine if this rudder doesn't fit." and we're super hairy at this point, like two crazy young girls on this boat waiting for this rudder to come. And of course, like the way the story goes, they had unfortunately brought us the wrong rudder. So we were a 2-man ocean rowing boat, and they had brought us an ocean rowing rudder for a 6-man boat, and it just didn't fit. I'd also dropped an incredibly important part of equipment, a metal rod, down into the 5-kilometre deep ocean. And so we also didn't have the metal rod to help fit the rudder. And after 3 days of this support yacht being with us, trying to find some way of fixing this rudder, it was impossible. Nothing would hold. We didn't have the right equipment. They didn't have the right equipment. So even though the offer was there to get off the support yacht, we, both kind of agreed that just didn't want to get off unless we had absolutely exhausted all possible things that we could do, because you just didn't want to get off after 75 days and think to yourself, what if I had done this? And, hindsight is such a great thing, but I just knew that I couldn't kind of live with myself in the way if I thought, I'd kind of quit. That's what it would have felt like. And Hannah felt the same way too. So we decided we're going to stay on the boat at 75 days because we thought we must find a way to fit this rudder. We just thought we need to wait until, the sea's a little bit calmer or something, and we'll use everything. So we did. We really used everything that we had on this boat. We sacrificed all charging cables, all electronics, so many thousands of cable ties, bits of rope, whatever extra bolts we had on the boat. And we then had to wait for a, kind of calmer weather window, which who knows when a calm weather window is going to be in the middle of the Atlantic. And then occasionally on a certain day, we would jump in the water and the two of us would try and fit this rudder. But the truth is that we couldn't get it to hold. And it's very different when you're fixing a boat in a dock or in a marina and the water is so calm. But the current in the Atlantic, you really are battling against such strong, powerful waves. I mean, that, the waves were enough to break our boat. So bits of rope and cable ties and bolts, unfortunately, weren't enough to hold the rudder. So it got to the point around, 95-day marker in which we were like, this is now bending on the kind of boundaries of being safe, I guess, in a way. We were kind of losing that perception of reality. In reality, how were we ever going to get to Antigua? We had no way of steering ourselves. I guess in the end of the day, we could have just sat on the boat and hoped that the currents and the trade winds got us there. But we didn't have enough resources to do that. And in a way, I'd set out to row across the Atlantic. I hadn't set out there to drift. And so, we decided, unfortunately, that enough was enough. And it was a kind of bittersweet day, I think. we'd pushed ourselves as hard as we could, both mentally and physically, harder than anything I'd ever done in my life. And I never thought that, God, never thought I could do that sort of thing. And but enough was enough. And, we were kind of running out of ways to clean ourselves, running out of food and that sort of thing. And it was time to say enough and get rescued. But you would like to think that because we were a couple of 100 miles away from Antigua by this point, that it would be simple and that we would be rescued and be given a nice Antiguan holiday. But the reality was that we got picked up by a cargo ship heading 4,000 miles north to Becancour, which is in Canada, and then spent a further 13 days or 2 weeks on this Belgian cargo ship with 22 Indian guys, and got deported into Canada in about -30 in the middle of March. So it ended up being this crazy experience. And I remember we put out a call to be rescued the day before, and the Maritime Rescue Service, they don't really care where you're heading. They just care about your safety. And so they diverted the nearest ship to us. And that was, we didn't know where it was going until it came up to us at about 2 a.m. in the morning. We said, where are we going? Where are we going? And this captain's voice came across. He said, yeah, you're going to Becancour. I didn't have a clue where that was. And we were like, where's that? And they're like, Canada. We're like, what? It ends up being further north than our entire journey had been trying to get to Antigua. And so we had scrambled onto this cargo ship at 2 a.m. in the morning. They dropped down, it was 650 foot long and 200 foot high, and they dropped down this rope ladder to us. And without any safety nets, we kind of scrambled up onto it. And I hate heights, believe it or not. Like, I can do most things, but heights, they absolutely make me feel sick. And my legs go all wobbly. And I just remember holding onto this swinging, like, rope swing in the middle of the Atlantic whilst the boat's getting bashed all over the place. And people were screaming at me to hold on, and just putting one foot in front of the other and just staring in front of this cargo ship and just being like, please get me to safety. And it was such a surreal moment. I mean, me and Hannah, we'd just been the two of us, this small unit. We'd seen no outside person for 96 days. It'd just been us in a 7-meter ocean rowing boat, in which the livable space was only about 1.5 meters. I mean, really, me and Hannah slept in the cabin together each night, and there was not enough space for both of us to be in that cabin. So I slept for 3 months, as did Hannah, with my legs permanently up at my chest. And it was weird. And we got pulled onto this cargo ship, and we were being stared at by these 22 Indian guys, and they could not believe that they had just pulled out, from the ocean, plucked out these two 23, 24-year-old girls. They just couldn't get their heads around it. And I couldn't get my head around seeing somebody else other than Hannah for the first time in my life in 4 months. And we were kind of hysterical, giggling, kind of didn't know whether to laugh or cry, just kind of laughing and shaking through the whole thing. And the captain of the ship, called Sanjay Jolly, who's just the most amazing guy, he came and brought us 2 Budweisers and a plate of Indian food, and was like, look, welcome on board. And that was odd too. And then we kind of got to have a shower. It was nothing like how I'd envisioned it. When you're doing these sorts of things, I guess the one thing you think about is how nice it's going to be to, have a shower in your own bathroom or in a hotel, and you're going to use super nice hair products. And I can't wait to be able to shave my armpits and shave my legs and all these things. And then then we ended up just being handed a Lux bar of soap, and that was it. And we were kind of just scrubbing ourselves down in these little porter cabins on this massive cargo ship. And of course, we then got delayed on the cargo ship, and we spent what should have been a 10-day trip was 2 weeks. We got stuck in the ice heading into Becancour, and the cargo ship couldn't move. We had to get this Canadian icebreaker. That's not an official name. I was going to call him an icebreaker dude. That's what he was, but I don't know what his official title was. And he came on board and helped us get through the ice. And then, eventually after kind of 4.5 months, arrived into Heathrow to a kind of grey and gloomy set of parents who I'm not sure if they ever thought we were going to come back alive. And then that was that. That was kind of in a nutshell, to whittle down a 96-day journey, or 100 and whatever it ended up being, 111-day journey in the end, to 10 minutes. Yeah, that was the first experience.
Wow.
It kind of sounds like I'm making it up. I realise that people are like, "Wow, it's so up and down," and yeah, but I promise I'm not making any of it up.
No, I mean, I've seen the photos. I mean, it's just, I mean, you go off thinking, you know, you're going to row the ocean. You know, it's going to be a challenge, a big mental and physical challenge. But actually, there's so many different things in there that you don't think you're going to have to deal with. And the fact is, you know, you were out there for so long. I mean, I was starting to think, I mean, did you have the supplies of food, and also that 27 days drifting, and it's just you and Hannah, and thank goodness you got on. I mean, you most probably, it's a life-changing experience going through that. And then,
yeah,
I mean,
it was. That was the thing, and the thing was, that was the problem. Is then when I came back, it was, how did I slot back into normality? You know, I had a life-changing experience for me. It had blown all my perceptions of who I was, what I wanted, what I thought I got a kick out of, just out of this world. And I was just left with thinking, my God, how am I ever going to fit back and, you know, start doing the 9 to 5, or start getting, you know, this full-time job? Obviously, everybody has to do that. Everybody has to survive. And my parents, of all people, were like, "No, Lauren, you know, you've been away for 4 months. It's time to crack on. It's time to, you know, settle down." And I felt kind of alone at that period. You know, I felt like I really had no one other than Hannah that understood what we'd been through. And on the other side of it, Hannah went on and she landed kind of her dream job, and she got this job for the Rio Paralympics. As an assistant rowing coach, and I didn't go and get a job. I kind of retrieved into myself a little bit, spent a lot of time, you know, not really doing a lot, spent a lot of time in bed, and I found it quite hard to process what had happened, and also that side of pushing yourself uber hard, and really kind of harder than I had ever before in my life, or had any reason to, I guess, before in my life. And then you come back and nothing else has changed for anybody else. You know, I remember saying to my mum and dad, "So what have you been up to for 4 months?" And them saying, "Well, not a lot, really. Like, Christmas has come and gone. Like, your brother had a birthday. But other than that, you know, same old."
It's really, really crazy. I mean, looking back now that you've almost got some distance, you know, it was 3 years ago now. Obviously, it's completely changed the direction of your life. But what do you think you learnt most about yourself from that experience, and also the experience afterwards of going through that, you know, I will use the word depression, or that low time period afterwards? Because I'm sure, you know, I know that there will be people out there who may not have obviously rode the Atlantic, who may be in these dark periods where they don't want to get out of bed, they don't know what they're doing with their life, and they actually feel really, really alone, and it's incredibly challenging.
Well, that was the crazy thing, and this is the thing which is always, I think, is people who aren't going through it, they can't relate. And my mum would be like to me, "Lauren, what are you doing? You're someone that's just spent 4 months rowing the bloody Atlantic. Why can't you get yourself out of bed in the morning?" And no one kind of got it. I mean, I learned quite a few things about myself. I learned that I was way tougher than I ever gave myself credit for. You know, I would always been someone previous to this that I like to kind of belittle myself a little bit. I like to kind of say, "Oh no, I couldn't do that," or "Oh no way," or, you know, I kind of didn't really have that belief in myself. But I think I'd overcome so much, or we both had overcome so much, that I did have that belief all of a sudden. I was like, no, I am really strong. And it was that, I think, that in the end kind of got me out of that state of, you know, I wouldn't call it feeling sorry for myself, but yeah, I guess feeling sorry for myself. And I was able to say to myself, yeah, I've done all these things. I can get through this weird period of my life.
So what was next for you?
Well, that was the thing, is I made that decision to myself that I thought, look, there is more out there. That's what I felt like. There's more to see and do and experience, and how am I going to do this? And I was watching this program, this series called The Island with Bear Grylls with my brothers, and they were a huge Bear Grylls fan. I wasn't really particularly. And this thing came up saying, apply for series 2. And I didn't think it was for girls because the first series were just for boys. And so I forwarded my brothers the link, this application link. And it was only until a couple of weeks later on my Facebook feed that I saw a girl that I'd gone to school with put up, I've just applied, really hope I get in, or whatever. And I was like, what? How have you done this? And I looked and I was like, and I realised it actually said, men and women can apply. And it was the night before my graduation in Bristol, and I was frantically at 1 a.m. because just the way it always works, the closed deadline to get your application in was the next day, and I was frantically trying to write the most interesting things about myself that I could think of, and I wrote all sorts of random stuff, and then I just put it in, and I thought, well, one, it was rushed, and two, there was 100,000 applicants, so I was quite skeptical. I just thought they'd probably bin half of them. I bet they don't even read them. I bet, it doesn't even get in front of anyone's eyes. And then didn't really think about it. And then 3 weeks later, had an email saying, do you want to come for an interview? And I went for this interview, and it was really hard to know what they were looking for, because they were just picking, people to go through to the next stage from all walks of life. Literally every single person was completely different, that I had no clue about, like, was I doing well? Was I not doing well? And at the end they said, look, we want to shortlist you. And then it just went like that. The process was, being whittled down. And I was also kind of simultaneously going through the process of starting my first job as a nurse. I was reapplying to go to university hospitals in Bristol in the paediatric units, and I was getting, doing that, and then I found myself at this stage in which they crossed over. Do I go for an interview for my first job as a paediatric nurse, or do I take this opportunity to push to see if I can go on the island? And it was a bit stupid, really, because it was just a TV program, so I guess I should have put the nursing forward. I'm trying to tell my mum and dad, like, yeah, look, I'm just not going to go for this interview, and I'm going to just go on this TV show. But I did think to myself, look, the TV show is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It's 6 weeks marooned on a desert island with total strangers, with like 3 tools. Like, when in my life is that opportunity ever going to come up and show itself? And yeah, I did feel that perhaps I would be able to apply again for nursing if 6 weeks later or whatever. I kind of thought that the island was something that I wouldn't get the chance to do again. So I took the opportunity. I was like, let's go and do this crazy experience, another one. And I was uber excited about that. I was like, yes. I was like, get to escape the UK again. I get to go away. I mean, I have no survival experience whatsoever. I didn't have a clue what it would be like.
So let's just so for those who I don't know if people have seen the island, but you are stranded. You're sent out to a desert island with how many other people were you with?
Yeah, 14. There's 14 girls, 14 women. 14
women.
Yeah.
You're given a couple of knives. And that is it.
Yeah. That's it. You get. I remember reading the equipment list and thinking, my God, no toothbrush, no toiletries, no hairbrush, 2 pairs of knickers. I was like, what? 6 weeks, 2 pairs of knickers, like a bikini and some waterproof clothing, and that's it. And they actively tell you, do not research anything. They don't want people that have got survival experience. They want people, it's meant to be a real test, of can the average person do this? And yeah, okay, I knew I could semi-row across the Atlantic, but can I make fires? Like, can I kind of hunt for my own food? Like, what would I do if I was in that situation? So yeah, they're all questions I wanted to find out.
So what was it like? I mean, God, is the island's is it in the Pacific?
Yeah, it's in just off the coast of Panama.
Panama. So, I mean, I can't even imagine the scene. So, when do you get to meet the other women before you go on the island, or do you arrive separately, or you arrive together? How does it all work?
Yeah, you arrive separately. So you basically are given a chaperone I remember we had to meet at 6 a.m. in London Heathrow, and we were given a chaperone, which was one of the production team, and you just basically keep with them. So you have no idea who anybody is. You know, so occasionally I would see someone and I thought that maybe the woman that I was with was smiling, you know, nicely to somebody else. And I was like, oh, maybe, but I didn't know. You just have no clue. And you only really get to meet each other when you get pulled onto the boat to be taken to the island by Bear Grylls. That was quite hard to say. By Bear. Oh my God, I'm doing it again. Yeah, you only get to meet the other women when you're shoved on this boat by Bear Grylls, and even then you're told not to talk, because they want the first time that you meet people and you find out what each other's called and what you do to be when you're alone on that island. So it was so surreal, because you really have no idea who these people are, where they come from, their age, their background, what their personality is like, and you're all trying to kind of weigh each other up, and it's impossible to do. And it's also just such a heightened environment. You know, you're just alone, starving for 6 weeks. I mean, really, they are extremes of themselves.
So what was that like? I mean, that first day, getting off the boat, you're on this island with people you don't know, like you just said, all backgrounds, all ages, all levels of experiences. You're in this heightened situation. Everything is being filmed. Very high stress, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
And yeah, talk us through what happened.
Well, it was weird. And I soon discovered that I was the youngest there, which I found quite daunting, because there was a lot of strong personalities. There's a lot of women that were very much like, no, I'm here to lead, and I'm going to lead by shouting, and that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to like swear and shout at you and tell you to all do this, and I was just like, oh God. I thought, what the hell have I signed myself up for? It felt very much like a little bit like Big Brother on an island, because everybody was just, you know, everyone's trying to kind of assert themselves and where they want to be within the group. And I was like, no, I'm just going to, you know, keep it quiet and keep it very much quiet. And also, you know, just, we were told nothing. We were dropped off in the kind of, I don't know how you'd call it, in like the segment part of the island, and told to like climb up this hill. But other than that, we had no idea what the island looked like. We had no idea what the size of it was, what the shape. Didn't know if it had a beach. We were just dropped off into like mid-jungle, and also dropped off at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And so kind of your instincts, you know, set in. It wasn't about finding a beach and, you know, nice white golden sand. It was about maybe we should, you know, we need to get a fire going, because a fire is the most important thing out of all of this. And yeah, we kind of, after quite a few arguments and people shouting at each other, a couple of people crying, because I think they thought it was so overwhelming that they were going to do this for the next however many weeks. Yeah, we kind of set into our jobs. And I think the weirdest thing is that we didn't know when we were ever being picked up. And I don't think that's something that ever comes across on the show, is that we got told we were being picked up potentially from 28 days, when in reality they kept us on there for 40 days. And that was quite hard. That was quite hard to mentally get over.
What did you learn on the island?
I learned how to keep my mouth shut in arguments and not end up being shouted at. But no, gosh, you learn so much about yourself, and in all these things, I think it's a huge learning curve. For one, you know, I learned a lot of survival skills, learned really how to keep a fire going for 40 days and how to do that from like carving down wood. I learned also, for me, a big thing was, so I'm a meat eater, and I've always wondered, you know, what would I be like if I was actually ever faced with the conscious decision of, if I want to eat, then I'm going to have to kill this animal. And I think it's really easy, you know, for us guys in the UK, when you go out and you buy food or you buy meat, it's kind of beautifully packaged in cling film, and it's quite hard to associate the reality of where that meat's come from. But when it's kind of live and snorting in your face or whatever, or squealing, then it was a bit more of a daunting decision. But I kind of felt like if I was prepared to eat it, then the least I could do was actually, you know, humanely kill it, I guess, in a way. So I learned about that. I learned just a lot about friendships and again, like who I was as a person, and the fact that maybe I was quite tough, and that I was able to stay positive in seemingly kind of negative situations, which I never thought I was. I thought I was always a bit of a pessimist or a bit of someone that would complain.
How did you stay positive? I mean, in very, very tough situations, there's no luxuries. You know, you're starving, you're hungry, you're trying to keep a fire going, you're having to kill animals. I mean, how do you remain positive in that environment, and what sort of tips or tricks did you learn?
Well, I mean, yeah, it was super tough. I mean, we went 11 days without any food at one point, and that's without anything. The only thing we had was water. So 11 days is a very long time. I mean, I think for me is I obviously had the first row, which acted as a marker of how much stuff I was prepared to put myself through. So I knew if I could get through that, then I knew that I definitely, you know, could survive 6 weeks on an island. So I always had that kind of marker point in my head. But I find that, you know, if you get stressed out and if you lose your temper, nothing good ever seems to come from that. You never get anywhere. But if I remained calm and if I remained level-headed and I kind of, not despondent, but I let things go, that actually way more positive things happen. They just do. Like, things come to you when you have that attitude. If you're just worked up and you're het up and you're so like negatively focused, I think you kind of breed a negative energy which only attracts bad stuff. But if you actively choose to think positively, then I think you can fake it till you make it. That's one of my things. I just told myself I felt positive even when I really, really didn't.
And to be fair, sometimes, I mean, the one thing that you do always have in these situations is the ability to choose your attitude.
Yeah.
Because actually, there's nothing you can do about the environment that you are in, whether that's you are stranded in the, you know, on a desert island, or you're out in the middle of the Atlantic drifting for 27 days. You can always choose how you react to those situations. I mean, 6 weeks, there must have been, it sounds as though there was a lot of low points while you were there, but there must have been some high points or some, you know, moments that stick out in your memory. Can you remember, apart from being collected by the boat at the very end?
Yeah, apart from going off it, no. Do you know, it was being this unit of, and we ended up being, after you get through all the horrible moments at the beginning, we ended up being very close, and the bonds that I made with these other girls and these other women, you know, it was just incredible. It was like nothing else. It's so intense. It's such an intense environment. So you tell each other everything, you know, there's no holding back on any details. And trust me, I know everything about some of those women. And so for that reason, there's a lot of trust there as well. And I think I've made some friendships for life, and just being out in the middle of nowhere with nothing, you know, stripped of your essentials, and actually finding that I felt very happy in that way. You know, I had nothing that I do here. I had no luxuries, no makeup, no nice clothes, no food, no coffee, no Netflix, or all those creature comforts that we have. And yet I found that I was probably more happy than when I do have them. You know, I was just a more kind of well-rounded individual and just appreciated life. It's just so humbling. And obviously being out in the Pacific and in the kind of clear blue waters and the sunsets and the sunrises, and no, life was simple. It was good.
I think it's interesting as well. I think sometimes people almost get confused about where happiness can come from, that actually it can come from the material stuff that you can end up buying, or that new handbag or those new pair of shoes is going to make you happy. Whereas actually sometimes the only thing that can make you happy is you, inside you, and that feeling that only you can have. I mean, an incredibly intense situation. So you've now done these two incredibly different experiences. You can't even sort of compare the both of them.
Yeah.
But then you're coming off the island, and was it straight back into, going after that nursing job? Or, I mean, I don't even know how you can flip between the two.
No, well, again, you're exactly right. That was the problem. Is then I saw it. I think I saw it as something. I'll just get this out of my system, and then I'll head back and I'll do the nursing. And all it did was implement that. Actually, I was much happier when I was living with those, with almost nothing. I felt like a much happier person. I just felt like me. I felt like this is me. Like, this person who does, can be in extreme environments or is doing physically challenging stuff, that's where I felt like I tapped into who I was and where I felt the most happiness. And so that's quite tough, because that's not something that is easily accessible necessarily in day-to-day living. And it's definitely not if you, if you also want to be self-sufficient. So the overriding thing is when I came back from the island, is it fulfilled me with the confidence that I wanted to go back and I wanted to kind of conquer the Atlantic. So I remember coming back from the island and saying to myself, right, I'm signing up for the 2015 race. And this was a year to go by this point. And I got hold of the race organisers, and I had no crew, I had no boat, I had no money, I had no sponsorship. And I just said to him, I'm going to enter now. I'm going to do this now because I don't want to second myself. I don't want to doubt myself anymore. I just want to get this done. I want to get this job done. So I entered, straight after the island. And so then I had that thing, I knew that in the next year, what I was going to be doing, I would be going back for the Atlantic. So that calmed my head. So I had so many things to do, like I said, crew, organising the boat, sponsorship, choosing a charity, all those things. And so I decided, well, I would work for a magazine in the interim period as kind of being able to support myself, because there's no way my parents would let me, and rightly so, there's no way they would let me kind of dwindle for another year just because I was rowing across the Atlantic. They were like, if you want to do this, you're going to kind of do this and be self-sufficient at the same time.
I mean, I think what would be really fascinating is the people around you, because you've almost gone through like these big changes and you've probably shocked yourself in who you have become, which you most probably were all along, but people didn't necessarily see that actually you were tough, you were determined, you were focused, you had endurance, you could survive these incredibly challenging experiences. And then it's almost coming back into normality. And how did your friends and family react to, when I say the new you, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's been quite a tricky process, I think, because I came back a very different person. I came back with lots of stories. And I think in one way, like I said, I felt that no one could relate to what I've been through. I think that my friends and family felt that from me as well. I think they thought, whoa, Lauren's been through these crazy things. They saw it as kind of them living a boring life. And I think they saw it as like, why would Lauren be interested in what I'm doing? Like, if she's away rowing across the Atlantic, or she's away spending 6 weeks on a maroon desert island. And so I'd call them up and be like, what have you been up to? And they'd brush it off. They'd be like, oh, nothing, just work, just doing work. And that was hard. And I would, trying to explain to people, look, just because I'm doing these stupid things doesn't mean that what you're doing is any less important, because it's all relative, isn't it? It's all relative. What I find stressful and what somebody else finds stressful, they're always going to be different. So yeah, that was strange. But I think in terms of making the decision to do it again, they've always been really, really supportive. And I think that's half the reason why I have been able to carry on and do those things.
I mean, was there any fear? I mean, I know you were full of confidence after leaving the island, but you tried the Atlantic before, and obviously you'd suffered so many different challenges and failures, and the boat breaking, the rudder not fixing, the drifting. Did that, because you'd had that experience first of all, did that give you more fears that you think, actually, these are potential problems I'm going to have to deal with? Or do you think it led to you being even more prepared?
Well, it was both. It was very much both. I mean, I didn't really sleep for the 3 months before the start of it. And my biggest fear was failing again. And I was kind of haunted by everything that would happen. I was just thinking, but I know like how bad the waves are going to be. I know that the boat is so susceptible to, to breaking. And I just thought, if I go again and I spend another 3 or 4 months out in the ocean and it's not a success, like how am I going to come back from that? Because I'd struggled the first time coming back and getting over the shock of it all. And I didn't know. And that was also, my parents were terrified that if it wasn't, it kind of, the onus drifted from actually the safety of me doing it and actually people being like, whoa, this is a big challenge for Lauren to, partake, or whoever partakes in it, to being the main fear on everyone, including my own mind, was what if she doesn't get across, because we don't have to deal with it, a second time round. But I think that fear that I had pushed me to be very prepared. I'd lie awake in the months and months and months before, and most nights, going through like mental lists of what I needed to get for the boat, and had a notepad next to my bed, and I would just bring it up and I would write down, at like 4 o'clock in the morning, like, get more bolts or get another auto helm, or make sure this is checked, or make sure the girls have done X, Y, and Z. And it really did change and adapt the way that I approached the second row. So it was horrible to go through, but I wouldn't change it now.
Absolutely. I mean, I think your second row, Row Like a Girl, I think that's when I first came across you, through the Twitter, the Facebook pages, and just the message that you were promoting, because you're an all-female crew, the youngest female to ever attempt to row across the Atlantic Ocean. And it was just inspiring, to see you guys and to see the feed on Twitter. I mean, is that message quite important to you? Is that something? Yeah.
I mean, it's something that kind of drives me to continue to want to do these things, because I very much feel like I'm preaching a message of the person that I was when I was 14 and 15 years old. Is I was that person that, like I said, didn't get stuck into sport and shied away from, doing the cross country and doing the netball, because my face would be red, and it meant that my hair would be like sweaty, and I didn't want boys to see me looking like that. And just my perception of sport was a negative rather than it being a positive. And also kind of, I think of women in sport as well, is I had these kind of views. I mean, I'm talking when I was very young here, by the way, I'm talking when I was like 15, that it wasn't a cool thing to do. And I think sport has changed my life, and it absolutely is the coolest thing to do. So yeah, if I can get into people's heads when they're young and be like, look, there is another way other than Kim Kardashian and her clang on the internet.
I mean, I even look back and think, I didn't want to start lifting weights because I didn't want to be seen as butch. I didn't want to get bulky, and I just wanted to tone. I just wanted to do cardio, and I was almost scared of getting strong.
Yeah,
and it's amazing actually when you almost break through that barrier. And actually, I mean, one of the things I've noticed from doing the podcast, I interview these incredible women who've done these amazing challenges, from rowing across oceans, swimming channels, climbing mountains. And you're just like, actually, this is awesome what women can do. Women just don't get to hear these stories. Now, I think from your website, there were 26 teams going out there, and 24 of them were male teams. You're in the minority. You're 4 girls. how was that? How were you treated? I mean, I don't know if was there, I don't, well, obviously you're rowing by yourself, but was there sexism or was it?
Oh yeah, it was rife, and it was, and to be honest, we were all very lucky by this point because actually we fed off it. We were four very strong and determined girls, and we knew what the message of our campaign was. We called ourselves Row Like a Girl because we wanted to change perceptions of what like a girl meant. We wanted to enter into this race and to do well. But yeah, there was bets against us that we wouldn't get across. I think we had someone was saying that we had like 100-to-1 ratio of failing. There was people making bets on who would come, top 5 or top 10, and never once did they say that we would be anywhere near there. And so, I mean, it's all done in jest. It wasn't anything that was deadly serious, but I mean, it just motivated me even more. It just made me think, oh, why, just infuriated me. Why are you not looking at me and thinking that we can't do this? Why are you not looking at the four of us and thinking just because we're not 6 foot tall and we're 110 kilograms that we can't do well? I mean, so I think so much of ocean rowing, or really of any endurance sport, it's mental. It all comes down to your mentality, and very much for ocean rowing, the people that you're surrounded by.
I mean, I was just going to quickly say, I mean, even though it is banter and people joke around, it's all in jest, actually, sometimes I think, even though it is banter, it's, what am I trying to say? It's still a way of undermining you.
Yeah.
It's a way of denting your confidence. It's a way of just, it's those little tiny pinpricks, just, those little negative comments which can come into your psyche, and it can start to think, well, actually, maybe I'm not good enough at this. Maybe I'm not strong enough to finish it. Maybe I can't do this. And actually, you've got to stamp out that negativity. And you talk then as well about a lot of these challenges, whether it's running, swimming, cycling, rowing across an ocean, about the mental side of things.
Yeah.
How did you and your teammates, how did you mentally prepare yourselves for this crossing?
Well, I mean, I did a very good job of making it sound as unglamorous as possible, and this is one thing that I always say about ocean rowing is I think people have this idea that it is glamorous. I think what you see of it is you see the end photos and you see people with their kind of hands up in the air and the flares going, and it's all emotional and they're crying and it's great. But the reality of it is that it's a lot of hard work, and it's very unglamorous, and it's not showering for 6 weeks, and your bum has got millions of salt sores, and your back is breaking because you're pulling an 800-kilogram boat. And so the large part of it is horrible. So I made sure that the girls basically only heard about the bad stuff. I was like, look, I didn't want them to have any idea and get wrapped up in the kind of glory side of it. I wanted them to know fully what they were getting themselves into, because I think if you can feel prepared physically, but it's being mentally prepared as well. And we were so prepared in the sense of we also knew what to do with the boat. We knew it inside and out. We'd gone through everything. So in the back of our heads, we didn't have that fear of what if X, Y, and Z breaks, because we knew if they break, we know together as a team how we're going to fix them. So that was a lot of our kind of stresses out. And we also, we had a shared goal. We knew what our goal as this crew was, and we'd worked together for a year as Row Like a Girl to build this message and the kind of ethos of what we were as a team. And so we were quite strong on that. And I don't think it would have taken a lot to have broken that spirit.
Absolutely. So tell us about the journey. Well, I'm hoping it was very different from the last one.
It was literally a polar opposite experience. Really, if the two of them together were just, they don't even cross over remotely. I mean, the Row Like a Girl, just from the start, what we did is, trying to think how to explain it. When the start line went off, we decided we were going to head down south. And we were going to do this because we knew that in 5 days' time there was going to be a pressure system of weather coming, and people that were above a certain latitude or longitude, can't even remember which one it is now, above this line, we're going to get hit by this weather and potentially be pushed north and pushed more back towards the start line. So we set off as a crew and we were like, we're going to head south. So that looked quite strange on the map. That looked quite odd as to why this one group of girls from the other 26 teams were just heading directly south. And we were getting so many messages on board the boat and so many messages through to our social media site criticising us and criticising me as a skipper. And, you know, just from things such as the jokes as being like, you know, girls, which way are the girls going? They don't know which way they're going. They're just heading down to Cape Verde, which is an island south, for a holiday. And why are you going to Brazil, girls? Like, or just all these stupid comments. And then also ranging from, you know, people that had lots of experience of sailing and our parents emailing the boat saying, you know, you're really doing the wrong thing. Everybody else is going in this direction. What are you doing? And we had to block that out as a team and be strong in the fact that we'd made this decision as a team to do this journey, to go south. We'd looked at the weather charts, we'd seen that pressure system was coming in, and we were going to stick to our guns, and we weren't going to let these outside kind of opinions sway us, which was really tricky and made the first 5 days incredibly tricky, because not only is it as a baptism of fire, I mean, I was being sick every 15 minutes, as was G. Couldn't eat anything. We couldn't really take on much water either. Obviously, you're getting used to doing the 2 hours on, 2 hours off sleep pattern and rowing for 24 hours a day. And on top of that, you've got all the people that are meant to be your biggest support system telling you that you're doing the wrong thing. So it was tricky. But I was very glad that we stuck to our guns when, you know, on day 5, like clockwork, this pressure system came through, and everybody else had to either deploy their power anchor to try and hold their place, or they got pushed, you know, 100 miles north. And we were able to carry on rowing. And that's how we got ourselves into second place. So it was a big tactical move, and from then on, because we were in second, you know, the pressure changed. It became less about, oh, we just want to get across, and we want to show that females can take part in this sort of thing, and it became, well, actually, we're in this amazing opportunity to prove more than we ever could have imagined, you know, that row like a girl could actually mean coming second, which has never been done before in the race either. And so, yes, and then it was like, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep racing. And we had stuff break on the boat, but like I said, we knew how to overcome it as a team. We were so well prepared. We literally had learned the boat inside and out that we were able to fix stuff.
You know, I love that. I love the fact that you stuck to your guns, you made the decision together with all this outside pressure, and, you know, especially if every other team is heading in a different direction.
Yeah.
And there must have been times where you started to doubt yourself, or you didn't, and you were just like, no, this is it, this is what we're going to do. I mean, absolutely amazing. Because you finished second out of 26 teams, 24 male teams. You've got 2 world records. Now, what were the world records for? Was it because you were the
youngest and fastest?
Youngest and fastest all-female crew to row across the Atlantic Ocean. Just absolutely inspiring. And also your first time in Antigua. What was it like? You know, arriving at the island? Did you get your island holiday without having to kill stuff?
I milked it. I milked that island holiday. I was having Caribbean rum for breakfast. I loved it. It just, you know, I had dreamt about Antigua for about 2 years by that point, and I had, to be honest, built it up to be this magnificent thing, and I was kind of scared that, oh God, what if I get there and I find it completely underwhelming? But no, it wasn't anything like that. It was just the most incredible moment of my life, you know, especially the pent up feelings of failing like 2 years ago and going back a second time, and then again, you know, being these four amazing women on this boat, being our little unit, and then seeing land, and then seeing trees, and seeing houses, and people coming out, people swimming out to come and see us, people on their canoes, like just so intrigued as to what these women are doing, rowing in from the middle of the Atlantic into Antigua. And you get into Nelson's dockyard, and the flares are going off, and people are sounding their super yachts, and there's just crowds of people in the Caribbean steel drums, and people are dancing in carnival outfits. And then you see your family, and you see your parents and your boyfriend or brothers and sisters, and they're all like crying for you. And it's just an incredibly emotional moment, and something that I don't think I'll ever forget.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it says in your website you wanted to show that women can be just as strong, just as independent, and push their limits. And sometimes you can push yourself further than you can ever imagine. And we do need positive role models for young people. And you are definitely a positive role model for women and men and young girls and young men out there. Now, you do have a website. Do you just want to share your website with everyone so they can go and check out all of your adventures, read more about you, and just, be kept up to date with?
Yeah. I'm actually trying to blog a bit more, so I'm really sorry, but I will get better at that. But yeah, my website is just www.laurenbethmorton.com.
Awesome. And I was going to say, are you on Twitter or Instagram?
Yeah, Twitter is @MortonLauren, and my Instagram is Lauren Beth Morton, all one word, I think, yeah.
No, that is absolutely fantastic. And what's next for you? Because you're currently back at work nursing now, aren't you?
No, I'm not nursing. So I am back at work, but I work now in TV production. It's a bit more flexible than the nursing. But no, yeah, planning the next thing. I'm hopefully sailing across the Atlantic in 3 months' time. And then also planning to do, a bit of an endurance run, because I've done a bit of running before in the past. And so just want to keep testing the boundaries,
Absolutely. Keep testing the boundaries. So please do go and check out Lauren's website and be kept up to date with all her incredible adventures. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the Tough Girl podcast and sharing your incredible story.
It's so nice to finally talk to you. Like I said, I feel like I know you. Follow you on Instagram like a crazy stalker.
And so should everybody else at Tough Girl Challenges.
Nice plug.
Nice plug, absolutely. No, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hello, how is everybody doing? I hope you're all having a wonderful day wherever you are and whatever you are doing. I hope you've been inspired by Lauren and her incredible achievements. If rowing is something that you're particularly passionate about and you want to hear other rowers, then I've got a few episodes to recommend for you. Take a listen to Ros Savage, who was the first woman to row solo across the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Indian Oceans. Absolutely fascinating story as well. She actually left her job in management consulting when she was 38 to row across the ocean. So age is but a number. We also spoken with Sally Kettle as well, another Atlantic Ocean rower. And her story is quite interesting as she ended up rowing across the Atlantic Ocean with her mum, who she hadn't actually spoken to for 10 years. We've also chatted with Ellen Half-Davies as well, another incredible rower and sailor. So there's loads of amazing episodes that you can go back and listen to and be inspired. We talked about Instagram then, so do come and check out my Instagram. My handle is @ToughGirlChallenges. I generally post stuff a lot about fitness, so a lot of the weightlifting I do. There's pictures of food, there's pictures of travel, there's pictures of adventures, and just highlights of my life. So I'm sure you'd like it. And I would also love to follow you back. So do you know what would be amazing? I think I've asked this on another episode, and some of the pictures were fantastic. Wherever you are listening to this episode of the Tough Girl podcast, take a selfie, take a snap of the view, and just tag me in that picture, because that will just be absolutely stunning. The last one, my favourite one, was a lady out in Australia. I've completely forgotten her name, so I do apologise. And she sent me the most stunning photo for a view from a train, just this incredible picture of this amazing view. So absolutely stunning. So yeah, wherever you are, if you're in the garden, send me a picture. If you're listening to it on the beach, if you're up a mountain, if you're going for a jog, going for a run, just send me a selfie or send me a picture of what you can see. That would be absolutely awesome. one of the things that I haven't mentioned for a while is about the Tough Girl Tribe. The Tough Girl Tribe is a closed Facebook group that I created for you guys, for the listeners of the Tough Girl podcast. I want to be able to connect you all. I want you to be able to connect with other like-minded individuals who have the similar thoughts, who want to go out and achieve. They want to be successful. They want to challenge themselves. They want to push themselves both mentally and physically. If this is you, come and join the tribe. It's an incredibly supportive group. It's for the female listeners of the Tough Girl podcast, and you don't have to be rowing across oceans. You don't have to be swimming across channels or climbing the highest mountains in the world. You just have to be going out there and doing stuff for you, whatever that challenge is. As long as it's personal to you and means something to you, that is all that matters. Whether that is a 5K, whether that's quitting your job, whether that's rowing across the ocean, whether that's taking up yoga or ballet or trying something new for the very first time, you will get the support that you need in the tribe. It's incredibly supportive. Everyone's very, very friendly. There's loads of advice there. There's loads of knowledge there as well. Ask questions and you will get the best responses that you could possibly imagine. So please do go check it out on Facebook. Well worth joining. Thank you again for listening to the Tough Girl podcast. It's amazing to have your support. I hope you're enjoying all of these episodes. If you are, please hit that subscribe button, leave a review in iTunes, and tell a friend about it. Just tell one person this week about Tough Girl podcast. Help to spread these messages of inspiration and motivation. One of my big beliefs is that women who do challenges such as this, they don't get the media exposure that they should. They don't get the sponsorship that they should, and they don't get the support that they should. So we've got all these incredible role models out there who just we don't know about them. So this is why I do the podcast, so that I can help to raise these incredible women's profiles. And you can help with that. Tell your friends, retweet, like the Facebook page, share the post, comment, leave reviews. You can do your part. So have a fantastic week, and I look forward to catching up with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl podcast. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.